Back to India now. New Delhi is facing more challenges in South Asia. A turf war is underway here, a battle between India and China. And Xi Jinping is making no effort to hide his mission. He wants to turn South Asia away from India. But is he succeeding? Tonight, we're looking at three neighbors of India: the Maldives, Sri Lanka and Nepal. We start with the Maldives. Their government made a surprising announcement today. They got drinking water from China, almost 1,500 tons of it. The deal was struck in November last year. A top Chinese official had visited the Maldives. That's when President Mohammad Muizzu signed this agreement. But for some reason, it was not announced. Today, Male went public with it. They announced that the water has already been delivered. And do you know where it came from? The glaciers of Tibet. Now, this is very important for the Maldives. We are talking about a nation of islands and sandbars. They have very little groundwater. So water shortage is a major problem there. It's a national security issue. In 2014, India stepped in to solve the problem. There was a huge fire at the Male water complex. So the government reached out to India and the response was swift. New Delhi launched Operation Neer to rush drinking water to the Maldives. The first plane landed within 12 hours. In total, India donated around 2,400 tons of water. And thus, crisis was averted. But now Muizzu has turned to China. Is there precedent for such a move? We go back to 2014. China too had rushed water supplies to the Maldives. They gave some 1,000 tons of it. So this has happened before, but the timing and context are very different this time. 2014 was a crisis. The Maldives needed all the help they could get. But this shipment is not like that. It was planned and agreed upon in advance. And it fits with Muizzu's broader agenda. He wants the Maldives to look beyond India for healthcare, for military needs, for loans, and for infrastructure. The question is, should water be any different? Well, logically, yes, it should be different. China is much farther away from India. From the Maldives. So the shipping time and cost will be a lot higher. Does Muizzu not know this? Or does he not care? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. In the meantime, let's look at the second Indian neighbor on our list, and that is Sri Lanka. Now, what are they up to? Sri Lanka's Prime Minister was in China this week. He had a meeting with Xi Jinping. Xi called for deepening the strategic ties between both these countries.
China is willing to work with Sri Lanka to carry forward the spirit of independence, self-reliance, solidarity and mutual assistance, reflected in the Rubber Rice Pact, consolidate political mutual trust, strengthen the exchange of governing experiences, expand practical cooperation, jointly advance high-quality Belt and Road cooperation, and continuously deepen the China-Sri Lanka strategic cooperative partnership that reflects sincere mutual assistance and lasting friendship.
So what did Colombo get from this visit? A couple of things. First, some clarity on debt relief. You see, China is Sri Lanka's biggest bilateral lender. They owe $7 billion to Beijing, which is around 17% of total foreign loans. But Colombo is having trouble repaying. They ran out of foreign exchange in 2022, so the government is seeking help from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Just one problem though. The IMF says, restructure your Chinese loans first. Then we will bail you out. Now, China has not publicly agreed to restructuring its debt. But Sri Lanka's Prime Minister says Beijing has agreed to help. That's the first thing. The second is more investments. China has promised to develop two major projects. One is the Colombo International Airport. It was supposed to be expanded by Japan, but the plan was put on hold after the crisis in 2022. And looks like China is stepping in now. The second is the Hambantota port. China already has a 99-year lease on this port, but now Beijing wants to expand it. You can bet India won't like this. New Delhi already fears that Hambantota could host Chinese military, so expanding it is quite controversial. Finally, the third neighbor on our list, that is Nepal. Their foreign minister traveled to Beijing this week. He held talks with China's top diplomat Wang Yi. And what did they discuss? The Belt and Road Initiative. Nepal signed up for the BRI in 2017. 2 years later, China gave them an investment plan, a blueprint of various projects. But Nepal's parliament has not seen it yet. Meaning, no one knows what the projects or terms are. It's all shrouded in secrecy. But instead of solving it, Nepal's government is pushing on. They are looking to sign the BRI implementation plan, basically to kick off the projects. Reports say it could be signed by May this year, May 2024. Now, all of this is happening at lightning speed. On March 4th, Nepal's Prime Minister scrapped his coalition. He dropped the pro-India Nepali Congress Party. Instead, he allied with communist factions that are closer to China. And weeks later, there is progress on BRI. All these developments make one thing clear. India cannot take the neighborhood for granted. China will use money, ideology and power to challenge India every step of the way. So it's time to be vigilant and maybe think out of the box.